This is a LabVIEW Beginner lesson where we make a heart rate monitor. This is lesson 1-2, Compartmentalizing the Acquisition. In this video, we'll be creating a cluster as a type def and exploring that. We'll be creating sub-VIs where we compartmentalize the different parts of the acquisition. We'll not be actually adding any code like any functionality, we'll just compartmentalize it. This is because we will use it later, and then a compartmentalized version of this will be much easier to use. It will be more orderly too. We'll start by making a copy of this one. We don't want to overwrite it, as this is a very basic MyDAC reading. So if you ever have troubles, like it doesn't work or anything, you could just start this one, this VI, and you know it works. If it works in the last lesson, it works and there's nothing fancy in it. You can see every part of it, so it will be easy to debug. First thing we need to do before we can copy it is to open it. And then we take Save As, open an additional copy, add copy to the project. And we'll just click this once, just so you get some parts of the name. And we'll just start from there. So 2, that's it. Compartmentalizing the acquisition. We'll just call it after lesson names for now. So we'll start by creating a cluster. We want the cluster because when we separate things into different VIs, it would be nice to have like one common cluster that goes in and out of all of them. So if you forget a data point, if you forget something, we can just update it everywhere. And we'll start by, you can find the cluster here, cluster constant, boom. And we want the physical channel, because this is the channel we select, and we also want the task. So we create a constant, and this is the task out. We'll get the name here, we'll call it the MyDAC task. And we'll place it in here. And to make it more orderly, we'll just auto-size it vertically. And now we'll create a type def. A type def just makes this a global data type. So if any place uses this type def and we add or remove some data point from it, like we add a new task or whatever, it will update everywhere. So make a type def. When we make a type def, the name always disappears, but we'll add it again. Wow, that's... and then we just right click here, open type def, and here we can see it. We want to rename it to something more useful. So we can say the acquisition cluster. Not the best name, not the worst name. Save it. And we'll use some abbreviation. So it's a heart rate monitor dash, it's part of the acquisition. So this is just to tell me or you later what part it is. So we know it's part of the heart rate monitor, we know it's part of the acquisition, and now we want to call it. And we'll call it the input cluster. And there you go, close this, save it, and we now have our clusters. We want to now separate these into 3 things. So we want the initiation, which is here, and then we want the read, which is here, and we want the close, which is here. We want them to be 3 separate units. And here we go there. And we can start by deleting this one, because we will use the cluster as the input and the output. And to start, we'll just use an unbundle by name. To get this menu up, you just press Control, you hold Control and press space, and then you can search for anything. You can also find these cluster things here, and unbundle by name, which we'll be using a lot. So we'll connect the cluster up here. The channels come up. You can see all of them here, but we only need the physical channel. There you go. Oh, I connected it wrong. So connected where the other one was. And then straight lines are important in LabVIEW. Remove this one here because we want to bundle it again here. So we'll just do the same, Control space, bundle by name. Put this in here and put this in here. Now we get an error because it tries to put in the physical channel. This is a task channel. And then we'll continue here. And we'll move this one. We'll just delete each part of this one as we need to bundle and unbundle this here. So we'll just copy them from here because we're lazy. And laziness is not a bad thing. And we'll change to this one. There you go, in here, here. Move a little bit this one, and then boom. And we'll start it with here. It's important that the output comes from this one and not this one, because or else it won't take this data forward. So I could have done this mistake and just connected it from here. And you will see no error, but then any data pushed in here will just be discarded. There you go, and we'll copy this one here, and boom, boom. I have auto connect on when it's closed. This can be annoying, but in this circumstance, it wasn't. And before we start compartmentalizing, I want to change this to a waveform. So I'll just delete the data array, and I'll add it here, multiple sample waveform samples. This is because then we get the timing data too. I could have done this from the beginning, it doesn't really matter, but now I want it. And we can start with this one. What we want is we just want this cluster to be the input and the output of the VI, so we'll just mark everything we want inside and not anything more. And to create a sub-VI, you go into Edit, Create Sub-VI, and there you go. That's our first sub-VI. And our next sub-VI, we want this task here to be go in and out, but we want the waveform chart to be an output so we can read it from outside of the VI. And we don't want the loop to be inside the VI, because then it will be locked inside the VI. So what we want is just this simple read function to be in there, and then the loop, the while loop here, can call it. So we'll mark everything here and edit and create sub-VI. So that's our read sub-VI. And lastly, we want our close sub-VI. So just mark this one too, edit, create sub-VI, and there you go. Now we have all our sub-VIs. Now we need to save them and label them properly. So first we'll go this. We'll save it as heart rate monitor dash acquisition dash and then init. Or we can call it myDAC init. So this we know, this initiates the myDAC. Save. We also want another icon, as this is boring, or it doesn't really explain what it is. It gets confusing when you make larger VIs. So, and then we change to white here. You can change any color. I choose white because I want this as the background. I'll fill it here. I'll switch back to black. And then we write here, we can write acquisition. And then here we write, so, and then we write here, we write DAC MX init. And then okay, so you see this is there. We save it, close it, and now we have our DAC MX init. The next one is this one. And also, before we go into it, we see that this cluster, same cluster goes out there, and this is bad practice. You want the same type of cluster to go in and out of the same position on it, not swap like this. So we can start by just swapping this. What we'll do is we'll disconnect this terminal, disconnect this terminal, and then also swap them here to make it match with the pattern. This is good because it just makes it nicer to read later. Making readable code is important. And we'll remap it. Here we go. And this one there. Save. And this one we will call the same almost. We'll just use the name there and we'll call it read. We'll change the icon as we did last time. Delete this one, press delete or the X, use the template here, and then white the backgrounds. You don't need to white the backgrounds, but I prefer doing that. So it's still part of the acquisition. It's just normal to have kind of the bigger, broader perspective on the top and then the specifics on the bottom. And this is the my DAC read. And we can move it a little bit with arrows to make it more centered. Press OK. Save. And here we see now there's an error here, so we just need to swap these out. Swap. Yeah, we'll fix the bendy wires afterwards. There you go. And then lastly, it's the close. We'll just save this as the close. And then edit the icon just the same as the other ones. White background, boom, boom. Text, go back to black. Acquisition. Then DAC MX. Close. And move it a little bit more center with the arrows. And what we can do now is, as you see, I already searched for close, but you just search for what you want. And then you can add an icon. Usually I would add more icons to this than maybe I have done on these, but I don't want to spend time on that. You can make icons on your own. This is just to show you how it could be done. And now for the cleaning. So what we want is to move everything here. A nice function is if you hold Control, you can push things, like push things further apart. But if you hold Control Alt, you can drag things closer to a certain extent. I can drag this one here, I can drag this one here, I can drag this one down, I can drag this one closer here. And now we can move this. Ooh. This one's down, down. And there we go. And I'll move this one a little bit closer too, just for the sake of it. There, much smaller, nice function, very easy to view what's happening. It initiates there, it's my DAC, it reads here, and then it closes here. And before we stop, we need to test if it works. We'll just go back here and then test. And we'll see it reads some data. I'll try to mess with the input and we see it reacts to my messing with it. Tap, 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 which means it works. You can also see now we have the actual time up here because it's a waveform. That's it for this lesson and lesson 1. Next lesson will be lesson 2, where we focus on making a simple heart rate monitor.